At this moment, Orus Hill Detention Center. Old Mrs. Wilson and her granddaughter Wendy have been living in the detention center for several days. The two of them are lucky. Old Mrs. Wilson won the sympathy of prison tyrant Jenna, so no one in there was to make things difficult for them. However, Noah and Harold were not so easy in the men's detention center. Because they were newcomers, the father and son were bullied by all kinds of things as soon as they entered. Not only do you have to do a lot of work, but the only little ration will be taken away by others, and they can't even fill their stomach every day. The more so, the more Noah hated Horiah in his heart. Because he always felt that Horiah, with all her wealth, must be comfortable with some boy at this time. If it weren't for Horiah who had swept away the money, how could he have fallen to where he is today? At the beginning, the 4 members of this family were sentenced to 15 days in detention. It seems that there are still a few days to come out, but no one expected that they had just had lunch today and the detention center where they were all released them at the same time. After learning that she had been released, Mrs. Wilson panicked and stayed in the cell unwilling to leave. Now she really doesn't want to go out and face the cruel reality. After all, she's penniless and the house at home has been sealed up. Not only can she not eat a bite to when go out, she doesn't even have a place to live comfortably. However, the prison guards didn't give her this chance, and because they couldn't get out of the cell, they pulled her up from the bed and dragged her out. Jenna also knew that the Lady Wilson must be on the street after she goes out, so she hurriedly shouted from behind, "Lady Wilson, teach you a way. After going out, go to the bus stop and block the bus. The police will be informed for disturbing the bus if you die or not die. The Social Security will catch you back again." The old Mrs. Wilson breathed a sigh of relief and quickly said, "Jenna, so thankful to you. You are waiting for me. I will come back again." Wendy followed the Lady Wilson without saying a word. She didn't know what to do at this moment. After all, she was a young girl, and she looked a little bit pretty. She really didn't want to stay in the detention center, but after she went out, how to earn a living is also a very serious problem for her now. She once thought about going to KTV to be a princess. If she meets a wealthy guest, she can occasionally open a room in private with him. Anyway, she has seen it now. After she has been with Fredman, her reputation is gone bad in Orus Hill. In that case, why bother to care so much? So, she made up her mind, if Grandma wants to come in again after going out, then she will ignore her. The prison guards in the detention center led the two out of the cell all the way, and then came to the office that specializes in handling the release procedures. As soon as she entered, she saw a man dressed in luxurious clothes standing in the office. Several prison guards surrounded him with respectful faces. The man saw the Lady Wilson and granddaughter come in, and asked faintly, "You are the Wilson family, right?" The old Mrs. Wilson nodded hurriedly. She can tell at a glance that this man seems to be a little backed, so she asked, "Master, are you looking for us?" The man nodded and said, "I released you on bail. Your son and your grandson were also released on bail. I will take you to see them both." When Wendy heard this, she asked excitedly, "Gentlemen, are my father and my brother really released?" "Where are they now?" The man said indifferently, "My people have arranged them. You two can just come with me." Old Mrs. Wilson didn't think too much about it. After all, she was already like this. There shouldn't be anyone who came here to hurt her. What's more, she was indeed released on bail. That being the case, she might as well go and take a look. Maybe there is a new opportunity. So the two went through the formalities, got their clothes and belongings, and after changing their clothes, they followed the man out of the detention center. Outside the detention center, 2 Rolls-Royce Phantoms have been waiting here for a long time. The man turned his head and said to her and Wendy, "You two, take the car behind you." Seeing the 2 Rolls-Royce Phantoms, Mrs. Wilson was very excited. No ordinary people can afford a Rolls-Royce. When the Wilson family was at its peak, they couldn't afford a Rolls-Royce. Even if she could afford the money, she would not be worthy of this worth and status. So the old Mrs. Wilson said, "Thank you, sir. Then we two will sit in the back." After speaking, he took her granddaughter to the front of the car behind. The 3 people got in the cars one after another, and the 2 cars started to drive towards the outskirts. After the car drove out for 20 minutes, the old Mrs. Wilson said to Wendy in surprise, "I think this road seems to be to the airport." Wendy also nodded, and said, "We will reach the airport expressway after a few kilometers." Old Mrs. Wilson frowned and said in a low voice, "I don't know who the gentleman in front is. Could it be that your father and your brother were also sent to the airport by them?" Wendy suddenly became nervous and said, "Grandma, shouldn't they be sent by Charlie? Are they going to get us out of Orus Hill and never let us come back? Impossible." Mrs. Wilson shook her head. "Why is that starred Charlie so polite? He won't release us on bail. On the contrary, he will find a way to let us stay inside for a while, even let us unable to get out all our lives." Wendy asked in surprise, "It's Fredman, right? Does he still miss the old love and want to take us to Eastcliff?" Old Mrs. Wilson waved her hand and said, "Impossible. If Fredman can still do what a man does, it might be possible, but he is already an incompetent person. How could he miss the old love? If he really misses the old love, if he did, he would never leave you."